Today on the Crested Butte is Home podcast, my guest is Mike Arbaney. And Mike and I met, I don't know, it's probably been 10 years ago now, at a hut outside Leadville. And how we never met before then is something I can't really explain because, Mike is one of those guys that you just kind of run into everywhere once you meet him because he is so active biking and hiking and cruising around in his old cars and just generally a guy that you'll see out there. So don't know how we didn't meet, but I knew he was someone I'd want to interview before this podcast. He is a structural engineer, so he is the guy that makes sure that pretty drawing that the architect made actually works and that the building won't fall down. So he does that, and we talk about that quite a bit, and then we also talk about his cars. Like I mentioned, he is a guy who loves to restore old cars and get them running again, and that just seems like such an interesting pastime to me, especially in a place like Crested Butte. So, and he's also one of the nicest guys that you are ever likely to meet. So great interview. Hope you enjoy it, and let's get on with it. Today on Crested Butte is Home, we have Mike Arbaney. So Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you bet. I'm Mike Arbaney, and I moved to the Valley in 2001. And I am fourth generation from the Aspen Valley. Grew up over there and went to school in Fort Collins for engineering, and I kind of specialized in structural engineering because I grew up working on building houses and that kind of stuff. And I wasn't really planning on going to college, but one day I kind of out there, I realized like, I want to know, why do we do this? Why do we do that? Why is...
You weren't going to go to college, you were just going to build houses? Or?
I wasn't really planning on going to college. Like I was pretty good in school and everything, but college wasn't, it was just kind of like I wasn't really planning on it.
What was the plan then?
I don't know if I exactly had a plan. I was like doing pretty good doing construction, and
okay.
I was interested in mechanics, and I worked at the Aspen Airport for a bunch of years, for like 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And so I was thinking like maybe I would want to be an airplane mechanic, but I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then I got a big scholarship from the Colorado 500, and that's actually what triggered me. I was like, okay, well, if I got this big scholarship, then maybe I should go to college.
Yeah,
and that's kind of actually what got me to thinking that like, yeah, I should probably go to school.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know what's the Colorado 500? Most people probably might not know.
Yeah, so it's a charity dirt bike ride, and they started in Basalt, and there's this like Indy 500 race car driver, and he Wally Dallenbach, and he's kind of the one that started it in a really long time ago.
70s, right? I think I've seen.
Yeah, it was in the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah. Huh. So I think they're at least on the 40th anniversary, maybe longer,
maybe even more. Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. I had no idea that they did a scholarship, and
it was a big scholarship. I mean, it covered almost everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you're in Crested Butte now, and I'm going to have to go ahead and ask, so what's the story with the leg lamp?
The leg lamp. Yeah, so one Christmas, my roommate and I were just like watching the Christmas Story. It was on, they did like the 24-hour Christmas Story, and so it was like always on TV. And we're like, we should get a leg lamp. Yeah. And so got a leg lamp, but it's a small house, so there's like no storage. So the leg lamp stays.
It's your lamp.
Yeah, it's just a lamp now. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I have the sweet glow of electric sex all year long.
Exactly. That's awesome. And everyone knows where you're at.
Totally.
Cool. So, all right, so you talked about engineering. So that's what you do. So talk about structural engineering. Like, where do you come into the process? What are your, just get into
that. Basically, structural engineering, I kind of, a lot of people ask me that actually. And I kind of tell them that basically the architect figures out what they want it to look like, and then I come in and I sort of make sure it doesn't fall over.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like my scope of work. So the architect they come up with a plan on what they want it to look like, and sometimes there's no walls, or sometimes there's like glass everywhere.
Yeah.
So I work with the architects and we go back and forth on, well, hey, you can't really do that. Or sometimes they're like, well, we still want to do that, and then I have to come up with some kind of crazy way to make it work. And then sometimes also I'll be like, well, you could probably save like 10 or 20 grand if you did this. And then they're like, okay, yeah, let's do that. So yeah, basically I'm like I take their plans and then I overlay that stuff into my computer, and then I make a set of framing plans and size all the beams and everything for the wind and snow load around here.
Gotcha. And you're based here, but actually you end up doing most of your work in Aspen and Telluride.
Yeah, so I split it like 3 ways, like a 3-way pie between Crested Butte, Aspen, and Telluride. And then that way I'm like just traveling between those 3. It's a pretty good mix.
Yeah. How do you spend like a week at a time, or do you just like how often do you have to actually get behind the windshield and drive?
It completely varies. Sometimes like I'll end up going to Telluride like twice in a week, which I try to never do. But a lot of times, because it's not that far away, I'll just go down and back in a day.
Really?
So it's like a pretty intense day, but sometimes, yeah, I'll do that. And then my parents still live in Basalt, and so if I have to go to the valley, I'll try to go on a Friday or whatever, and then hang out with them over the weekend or something.
Nice, that works. So let's hear some good structural engineering stories of some crazy houses or things that, I don't know, didn't work or had to get re-engineered, or I don't know. Give us some stories. There's gotta be some.
Hopefully, like most of the stuff works. It doesn't like not work. I don't know, the stuff that like interests me the most are these super complex like truss, like timber and steel truss systems. And that's kind of my favorite sort of thing if you want to focus on something cool. Because they're kind of like, it reminds me of like an old school bridge,
Right.
And we don't do very many bridges or very many like, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the more creative engineering side of things. But I've done like all sorts of, I do stuff from like little tiny like bathrooms at trailheads to like, one of the crazier things I've done in the last couple of years is the Hotel Madeline in Telluride. We did like a big ass swimming pool over their porte cochere, which is over like 2 levels of parking garage underneath that.
Oh, wow.
And so trying to support like a swimming pool that's elevated above like all that other random stuff was like really tricky.
Cool.
And everything else was already built, so it wasn't like it was from scratch. It was like a remodel. So remodels are always harder.
Right. Obviously,
and to do a remodel of that scale was like definitely challenging.
And they probably have the same historical stuff too, so you couldn't just like throw an I-beam wherever you wanted. Or...
No, it's up on the mountain, and it's like a big like new kind of like mountainy building.
All right, I didn't know where that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's
you could.
We could kind of do whatever we want. Okay. But it turned out awesome, and it's like on all their ads and everything now.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Nice, very cool. So if a hot rod drives by in Crested Butte, there's a good chance it's you. So why old cars? What's your interest in that?
So my dad was always into old cars growing up, and mostly like motorcycles too. And so I mean, just from like 4 or 5 years old, I was like polishing little parts and stuff and helping him work on things, and it's just always been something I'm super obsessed with, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think they're super cool, and they're just fun and challenging to work on, and it's kind of fun to have something that's kind of different. Like around here, that's definitely different. There aren't a lot of car people here.
Right. So do you prefer working on the cars or driving them once you've worked on them enough to drive them?
I think the thing that's my favorite is taking something that's not working and figuring out what's wrong with it and trying to make it work.
Okay.
I think that's actually my favorite part.
Yeah.
I do enjoy driving them around, but my favorite part's like figuring out exactly what's wrong and then figuring out like how to make it work.
Gotcha. Today on the Crested Butte Real Estate Minute, I wanted to talk a little bit about the buying cycle here in Crested Butte. And the summer months are, in fact, the busiest months of the year, just like they are in most cities in North America. However, being a resort market, being a ski market, there are other times of year that are busy too. In fact, March is actually the second busiest month, thanks to spring break and a busy ski season. So, things to think about. If you are a seller, keep in mind that there will be more buyers in those months that I just mentioned, June, July, August, and March. However, there's also typically more competition. There's more on the market at those times of year. And if you're a buyer, keep in mind that it can be a lot easier to get into those properties in November and December and May. And you might have a little bit more negotiating power in those times of year too. So those are some things to think about. If you'd like to get in touch with me, Frank Consella, my website is crestedbutterealestateagent.com, and that's all one word, and you can find my contact information there. Back to the podcast. So how do you find time? Because I know that you still love to hike and bike and ski and do all the things that we do here at Crested Butte. So how do you find time to engineer and work on cars and bike and ski?
And go on vacation. And,
yeah. Where do you sleep or what's...
I have no idea how I find time. Actually, sometimes I don't feel like I have any time for anything, but I think it's just important to just take off. Like, there's never going to be a good time.
Yeah.
You just got to just do it, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think I'm lucky to be my own boss and be able to do that, make that happen.
Yeah.
And I try to make sure that my employee, he has the same sort of thing, like if he wants to do anything, he, should just go do it.
He can do what he needs to do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also, as your own boss, I end up working way too much.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's how that works, unfortunately, unless you can step back and let somebody else run with it, but that's hard to do.
I've always tried, ever since, my first job in Crested Butte, at the engineering company I started at, I think the first day, it was a powder day. And I was like, well, they seem cool, I didn't even call in. I just went straight to the lift. It was the first day, and it was awesome though, because when I got up there, and I was in front of the line, and I see my boss and the other guy that worked there. There's only three of us.
So you were all there,
and both of them they were in line. They were like, well, we didn't call you because we wanted to make sure that. This was a little test.
And you passed.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, sweet. And then I was kind of wondering, are they just saying that, or is this cool?
That's awesome. That's a good story.
And it all worked out.
So, these car projects and your work projects, are there similarities, I would assume, sometimes between some of this stuff? I mean, problem solving, they're both problem solving.
I mean, definitely. Any of these old car projects, it's definitely a lot of problem solving all the time.
Where are you finding the parts for these? I mean, we don't really have a junkyard here that you can find.
Lucky for us, they invented the internet.
So you can find that stuff now.
You can either find it or you can find somebody that knows where it is.
Yeah.
So some of the cars are really easy. I have this 1930 Ford, and they make literally every single part for that whole car.
Because it was a really popular.
They made millions of them,
right?
And they're super popular, and they've always been kind of popular with people, older guys wanting to restore them, and then nowadays people wanting to make them into hot rods. Uh-huh. So any Ford stuff is really easy to find.
Okay,
but then my mom had this 38 Pontiac, and I was trying to get it running. And that one is really hard to find parts. Huh. And so I'll join the Pontiac club, and then somebody at the Pontiac Club, you like tell them like, hey, I'm looking for such and such part, and they're like, oh, I think I know a guy that has one, and
there's a lot of word of mouth
and
stuff.
then like, you know, 3 months from then you'll get an email from the guy like, oh, hey, do you still need a blah blah blah? And I'm like, oh yeah, actually. So a lot of stuff like that kind of happens. And then just driving the cars around town, like you'll run into somebody that's like, man, that's really cool. You know, I used to have one of those when I was a kid, or my mom had one of those, or my grandpa still has one and it's in his shed. You want to buy it? You know?
Really?
Oh yeah,
wow.
all the time. And so like the more I drive that kind of stuff, the more like leads I get on cool stuff, and then I'm like, oh man, I better go check that out, you know. And
right.
sometimes it's not even close to what they think or said it was, but then sometimes it's like even better.
Huh. So what cars do you have or that you worked on? Like go through the list, or at least some of your favorites.
I mean, it's like a long list. But
okay, so all right, cut it to the top 10 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, so right now I'm working on a 1933 Ford.
Okay.
And it's a hot rod. It has a like small block Chevy in it, and it's super cool.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, it's fun to try to like find parts for that and stuff.
Yeah.
And but I think out of all my cars, I kind of one of my favorites is a 1950 Mercury. And that was like one of the first cars I bought.
Okay.
And I bought it. It looked like a rock. It had lichen growing all on one side of it and everything. And kind of got that running and drove it around town a bunch. And then I chopped the top, so I made it like small windows, all gangster style. And it still has the original motor, original drivetrain, and that one was really fun to get going and everything.
So it was all original. So you had to like take it apart, I assume, and like
I took it all.
Probably all rusty and needed to like.
Oh yeah. So like welded on some new rocker panels and then the engine. Like I kind of went through like replaced all the stuff I needed to replace to get it to run, and yeah.
Huh. Do you ever sell these, or once they're yours, are they yours for life because they're like a party, or what's the deal with that?
I don't know. It seems like over the years I've definitely like bought and sold and fixed up and sold.
You have then?
Yeah, okay. Like tons and tons of cars over the years, and I mean, like I said earlier, it's kind of the funnest part for me is like actually fixing it up and getting it running. Yeah, and then once it's like a complete like car that's running and driving, then it's just a car. It's not so much of like a fun like project to go work on, Right. But with any of these old cars, like you drive them, then something's gonna go wrong, and then you gotta fix it.
Yeah. So if there was a dream car project, what would that be?
Oh yeah, I mean, I know exactly what it would be. So ever since I was a kid, like my number one like dream car that's like totally unobtainable is it's a 1932 Auburn boat tail speedster, and I've always just thought they were super cool. And the back it comes like the back comes to like a perfect like point, and it's
I think I can.
There was one in the Great Gatsby. It was like the blue car in the Great Gatsby.
Okay.
And that really big tall wire wheels, and they're just
a really like
elegant 30s like movie star type car.
Gotcha. Nice.
Super rare.
I was going to say, how many of those are around?
Like almost zero. I don't even know how many they made, but it's definitely not a Ford. Yeah. There's one in the Gateway Museum in Gateway, Colorado, and that museum is unbelievable if you ever happen to be there.
In Gateway,
it's like Gateway is the town.
Yeah,
and it's like it's
small
like
town, right?
Really super tiny. There's almost nothing there, but they have this like world class automobile museum there.
Huh.
And they actually have some like mountain bike trails around there now.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Huh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So, most people I feel like always work on old American cars, right? Do people fix up like old German cars very often? It doesn't seem to be quite the same like love for that. Is that just me?
No, there's definitely a lot of people into that too.
Really?
But I mean, we're in America, so there's not as many like really cool like European cars here.
Right. It wasn't quite as global back.
Yeah, but I mean, there's like tons of like Jaguars and all MGs and a lot of those kind of cars, but there's definitely not as many, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like in Europe, if there's more or what, but no, there's definitely like a lot of people that are just only into European cars.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Actually, when I was a kid, my dad had this biker friend, and he had a really, really beautiful Jaguar Roadster, and it was kind of like hot rodded a little bit because it was like candy apple red, and it had like a tan top. And I remember I was like really small, and I got in there, and the steering wheel was like all wood, and it was giant.
Like even now, it would be like
even now,
like the size of a bus wheel.
Oh yeah, it was like a bus steering wheel. Yeah. I mean, because they didn't have power steering, so those old cars already had like bigger steering wheels where they could steer them a little better. Yeah.
Gotcha. Huh.
But I remember that. That's definitely a good memory when I was a kid. I was like, how a car was just so cool.
Nice. All right. Well, totally changing the subject. We've done a lot of Al Johnson races.
Oh yeah.
What's your favorite costume that you've personally done?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's been a lot of fun costumes. One year I was the Cookie Monster.
Yeah, okay.
And that was a pretty good one, but that like big Cookie Monster head definitely, I thought I was gonna die on the uphill. It was literally suffocating me.
A little hot.
Like exhaling and inhaling the same air. I was like not even the top of the very first little tiny hill, and I had to take the whole thing off.
You took the head off.
Oh yeah, really? I was like literally gonna die.
Yeah. But at least it's probably good on the way down.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was kind of a weird year though, because they had it out like you skied out the easy out and then down to Paradise.
Oh yeah, and that went down the course, right? Like the ski across course.
Yeah,
It was another bad year, kind of like this year.
Totally.
Yeah.
Dotson and I one year we were Wayne's World. Wayne and Garth. That was pretty fun.
Nice.
One year I was Braveheart, and that was.
Was there a whole crew of other people with you?
That was when I first moved to town. I think it was like my second AJ or something.
Oh, nice.
And the AJ is like, that's one of the only things I've done almost every year I've lived here.
Yeah, I feel like you have.
Yeah. This year I didn't do it.
How come?
I don't know.
Work. Speaking of work.
Yeah.
Stupid work.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why I didn't do it this year. I should have.
Yeah. Well, next year.
Yep.
Just give you an extra year to think about your costume, so that.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I didn't have a good costume.
Best costume ever. So Crested Butte is home for you. You could obviously choose to be in Telluride or Aspen or wherever. So why Crested Butte?
I just really feel like this place has a really good sense of community.
Yeah.
And kind of like even after like my first like couple of years living here, you get to know so many people, and like you see people when you go to the post office, and I grew up in a like real small town. Like Basalt was a small town when I grew up there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty crazy over there now, but it was like a small community, and I just really like that small town feel to Crested Butte.
And you feel like Basalt doesn't have that anymore, right? The Roaring Fork Valley, it's kind of...
No, I mean, Crested Butte's cool because everything's more condensed. Like, you can ride your townie to anything if you live in town, or even if you live slightly out of town, you could ride your townie.
Yeah.
It's where the Roaring Fork Valley is just really big, and everybody drives everywhere. Nobody really rides their bikes that much.
No, you never see it.
Even if you're going mountain biking over there, you have to drive 30 minutes to go mountain biking. Where here, you can easily just take off on your bike from town and go for a ride.
Yeah.
Or even like backcountry skiing, you can take off right from town, and there's a bunch of skis that you could do without a snowmobile even.
Yeah.
Is to where a lot of other places it's like that doesn't exist.
Right. You're getting in your car and you're driving half hour or even an hour.
Right, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Well, if people need some structural engineering, they want to learn more or get in touch with you, where can they do that?
They could give my office a call, or they could find me on the internet. My company's Colorado Structural.
Gotcha. So Colorado Structural
Yep.
on the Google, and they will find you.
Yep.
Right on. Well, is there anything else I should have asked you about engineering or cars or something that's entirely interesting about Crested Butte that I didn't ask?
That I can think of.
There's got to be something.
Yeah.
Nothing? Here, I'll crack a PBR. People don't know that you're a PBR guy, so there's a PBR.
Nice. I mean, I like going to Kachivers because that reminds me of like when I first moved here, there was all the old dudes in there and stuff. And
Kachivers changed over the last 20 years, though.
It's changed quite a bit. Yeah.
It's
definitely more new and hip nowadays.
I was going to say, it's a little more hip than it was 20 years ago. But it still has the same feel. Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
They still got some old stuff in there, which is what I like. I like all the old stuff.
Yeah. No, I hear you. That's a good one. Well, one last question. Who else should I interview?
Maybe Kate Seeley.
She was on the list. She is a
Yeah.
fascinating person for sure.
Totally. She's always got a lot going on.
Yeah, she does.
Probably like one of the most creative people I've ever been around, for sure.
Yep, for sure. That'll be a good one. I will try to make that happen. Hopefully she has some time sometime. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for hanging out and chatting. And
yeah, you bet.
See you out there in your car or on the slopes or on the trail.
Yeah, awesome. Look forward to it.
Right on.